Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Hello, everybody. Gabby here.
And I'm Sakuyi. Hey, everyone.
And welcome back to the Mystery of Everything podcast. So Steve is here with me today because Brenna just went on her baby moon and she just got back today. So we were like, okay, let's just get this done and you don't have to worry about it.
There's no point in dragging her into something where it's like she can be more stressed. This is a point of relaxation for her. And I don't want her having too many inner thoughts about the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so today's episode is about inner voices. So imagine a constant voice narrating your every move or just commenting on your every move. Imagine if every time you read a book, you actually heard it being narrated in your brain. Or have you ever seen someone that enjoys talking to themselves or even arguing with themselves? So it's funny, growing up, my dad you would just hear this man chattering and you would think he is talking to a best friend and he's just talking to himself.
You've done that to me. You've actually asked me who am I talking to, and it's literally me talking to myself in the shower.
Oh, my brother talks to himself too. My brother talks through everything. Like this man has full on conversations. I do the same thing, but I don't let people hear me.
What do you have conversations with yourself about?
When I'm thinking about something. What do you mean?
Well, no, I'm just genuinely curious
like
because in my case,
processing things, or if I read something and I'm trying to work through how it works, chemistry.
Okay,
anytime
studying,
I'm doing anything with chemistry, when I study for anything, it always has to be like said. So like I have to say it, not someone has to say it to me.
See, that makes sense. For me, it was always hypotheticals and arguing with myself. Like, again, that whole conversation of being in the shower would be, oh, hey, remember this memory that was kind of embarrassing from 5 or 6 years ago when you got in this argument with this person? How would you argue it now? And then just replaying the conversation and then role playing each side and arguing.
Oh, yeah, I do that, too. I also plan conversations in my head. Like I hate socializing with people. So I'll have like everything planned out beforehand.
I know we said from the very beginning, imagine. Is this a thing that people don't do?
Okay, so a decent chunk of the population have an inner monologue. So imagine my shock when I found out that a lot of people don't have to live with a very condescending voice in their head at all times.
It's okay. If I didn't want to have one in my head, I'd have one outside.
Am I the condescending voice? Ah! I love this for me.
I'm not going to elaborate upon that. I'm just going to leave it as is.
So for me personally, I'm a terrible like auditory learner. Podcasts, TV shows, movies, anything without subtitles, a total nightmare for me. I have to read everything so that the voice in my head can read it back to me. And that's how I remember everything so well. Like if I just hear someone say something, I'm 98% of the time I don't process it. Like lectures in college were terrible because like I'm not hearing you. I need to read the textbook. Thank you.
So would you just be reading the textbook, or would there be those scenarios where every word that the professor says, you were desperately trying to write it down in order to be able to get
if
all
we
of
didn't
it?
have like a slideshow, then yeah, I'll write it down. But genuinely, the textbook was just easier because I can have my inner voice read it to me.
That makes sense.
It's like a narrator, but like my head. I don't know. But yeah, when I hear someone speak, it doesn't necessarily register due to the fact that my inner monologue has to recite things to me for it to stick in my brain. Don't know why I'm built like that. But the internal monologue uses language, but the person experiencing it doesn't have to speak or form any sound or words to hear it. It involves tone and inflection, which is not exactly ideal for people who are highly self-critical, as they may have a more negative internal monologue.
Gabby, do you have a more negative internal monologue?
Only when I'm in a bad mood, but most of the time, I'm a bad bitch. I'm a baddie. I'm better than everyone.
It is like a moment where we have a conversation and you can go from 2 points of extremes, like I am the best person on this planet and you will bow down before me too. I literally hate myself. I can't do this. I'm done.
Yeah, my inner voice. There's a lot going on there. We can just like talk about that in therapy on our therapy podcast that we should launch, where we just analyze what is wrong with Gabby today.
What we do is it's going to be styled just like one of those Reddit of like, am I the asshole? But it's like, am I crazy? And then we'll just like give scenarios from our life, what we respond. And the thing is, here's what we'll do. There's a game on a radio show that I really love called Florida or Not, where they'll list like some crazy event that happened. And you have to guess, did this happen in Florida or not? And we'll just do that, but with scenes of your life of like, did this happen to Gabby or did it happen to someone else?
That's fair. That's fair.
And we'll do it.
Okay. So the interesting thing about an inner voice is that it is estimated that between 30 and 50% of people experience their inner monologue. So Russell Hurlburt, a psychology professor who studies the phenomenon, he found that the consistency of the inner voice varies widely. So this means that some people can experience their inner voice constantly during all waking hours, while others had varied amounts of an inner voice throughout the day. So other studies that utilize different research methods, they suggest that people experience an inner voice 75% of the time. So that's like a really insanely wide range.
Yeah, you give me like we're talking 30 to 75%. That's huge.
Yeah, so I'll explain that later on in the episode, but it is not, they haven't narrowed this down. So now to me, the idea that someone isn't constantly having internal conversations is baffling. Like, how are they able to make decisions, draft entire stories or plays in their mind, or even just meditate, Well, actually, they might be better at meditating because, when you meditate, you're supposed to clear your mind.
Clear your mind.
But my
empty
voice
your
is
thoughts.
like, anyway, so this is dumb as shit. I'm like, okay, am I not thinking about anything? And I'm like, no, you're thinking, I'm here. Like, literally, why? Why won't you leave me alone?
Yeah, my freshman year in college, there was a whole thing where I still remember there was one point in which they took us out to meditate and like as part of like our orientation and that kind of thing. It was like preparing ourselves. And then I just remember smiling during it because, okay, weird autistic person that I am here and obsessed with history. I sat down under that. And mind you, been researching all these kinds of things in the weeks prior for another thing I was working on. And I sat down and in my head, I am just replaying a battle that I read about in the Crusades. And I'm just smiling there. And they asked me, oh, are you thinking about anything? Yeah, the Crusades. And they just looked at me.
Were the Crusades your Roman Empire?
No, everything is my Roman Empire because I became obsessed with it. I would go on the Wikipedia deep dives of any random topic and just go down through it, which means that my head is never silent.
You know what? Same. But not for that reason. No. So it's an entirely foreign concept to me that people can just not have one because I spend a lot of time in my head talking to myself, So I set out to research and I came across a few articles. The first being a Medium article that discusses how the inner monologue develops in childhood. So the research suggests that children typically develop their inner monologue around the age of 2 or 3. So really young, which is funny because sometimes Joya is like, she talks about like, oh yeah, no, in my head, it was just like really mean. Like, what do you mean?
Or when she swears that she asked, because she'll do the same thing or she did the same thing that you would sometimes do, where you swear that you asked something like for something to happen or for me to do something, but you had been silent, not said a single word for like an hour. And she'll think like, oh, but I asked that, but you asked it in your head. And we had to teach her from a young age that if she thinks it, she has to actually say it out loud to us.
Yeah. So it happens pretty young. They start developing that monologue like as toddlers, basically. So according to Healthline, internal monologues are partially controlled by a brain signal called a corollary discharge. Basically, this corollary discharge is a neural signal that is sent out along with a motor command. So it basically copies that command in other parts of the brain. So this signal helps your body to anticipate the consequences of whatever movement was done. So if you move, it'll just send copies of that out to the rest of like your body so that you know what to expect, right?
Like I did move. I'm expecting it's so. Hold on, to clarify, is that like because you moved, your body is expecting that if I'm going to punch something and there is a physical thing there, I am anticipating that it's like I am going to prepare for pain because something is going to happen.
Like you're gonna, So it helps the brain distinguish between the sensory input caused by its own actions or things caused by external events. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it helps you anticipate what's going on in the world around you in reaction to your actions.
Yes.
Okay. It's a little confusing, but like
the only thing I can associate with that with is the negative aspect of what happens when you go to drink something thinking that it's something else. And then when you take a drink and it's a completely different drink and you have an adverse reaction to it because your body was expecting something else. It was already preparing for it.
Yeah. So corollary discharge also accounts for why your voice sounds different to you when you speak versus when you hear it played back on a recording, which explains so much because I cannot listen to myself on these podcasts. Like that's why you have to edit them because I hate the sound of my voice because to me in my head, I don't sound like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've gone like, oh, I sound so bad. Gabby, you sound like you. So you think I sound bad? No, you sound normal. You sound like you. There's nothing wrong with this.
To me, everything's wrong with this. So the thing is, even if people don't hear an internal monologue, that doesn't mean that they don't have corollary discharge. Everyone has it, but an internal monologue is very dependent on how an individual processes like speech, you know, like how they process hearing speech.
Yeah.
So in my case, I don't process anything if I don't read it, you know? So it's a big problem because you, Stephen, would ask me a question and I would answer and forget it immediately.
How many
immediately?
Okay, guys. The amount of time that I have asked permission to do something, have offered some kind of food item or something, I've literally gone, cooked a whole thing, presented it to her, and then she looks at me and goes, what is this? I don't want this. You literally asked me for it, and I said yes. And then you said yes, you agreed to have this.
I also feel like because I process the world in a really weird way. Like I don't feel like I'm participating in anything that happens to me.
You're detached. Like it's one of those things. Yeah. It's not quite full mental disassociation, but it's like you're not fully there necessarily.
Yeah, nothing feels real. So like I'm always just vibing. Like I'm just a spectator on this little life of mine. I don't know why it is like that. I probably should go to a therapist.
Maybe
but
you
if it's not
your
broke,
inner thoughts.
I mean,
did you ever think about it? You are the inner thought, and this is just a flesh puppet that your inner thought is controlling.
But I feel like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like I'm fine. I just don't feel real. It's a lot to unpack, but that's why like I'm mentally like in my own little world all the time. And then when someone talks to me, sometimes I just don't even know, or I would think I say something and I didn't say a word, but I thought that I said a word. Mm-hmm. Very confusing stuff. So it's almost like my auditory processing is at like a 0. So the research for this episode is more about me understanding myself, and you guys just get to tag along. Okay. According to research, there seems to be 3 dimensions to inner voices. Verywellmind.com lists these as condensation, dialogality, and intentionality, with condensation being how concise your monologue is. So this takes into account how descriptive and in-depth your inner voice is. Some people have inflections, complete narration, whole sentences, and it's basically like a graphic audiobook, while others just have a few sentences or words.
Is there like those things, and maybe it's a completely different thing, but they associate the people who are like savants when it comes to math and whatnot, that they see or sense the numbers as something else, and it's how they're able to keep track of it all?
It's like different types of processing. It's like I have, like some people see numbers as colors and stuff. Like I see every number as like a color, if that makes sense. Like they're, I guess those are just like different ways of processing information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
So there's the next one is dialogality. It's whether someone thinks in one or multiple voices. So some people, myself included, can have a host of voices. Like I can plan conversations in my head and then I have a different voice for all the people that are speaking. Or sometimes I have fake arguments and I have different voices that I can hear like internally. I don't know. Is that how it works for you?
Sort of. Okay, this is going to sound weird from my perspective, and hear me out on this when I say this, because I know it's going to sound weird. my inner voice is myself, but it is like a superior, more knowledgeable version of myself.
Ooh,
that would be
narcissistic.
That
Your
would-
alter ego.
Well,
Evil Steve.
Sort of. It's evil Steve, but it's like the way that I imagine it is that it is that voice of like when I'm about to do something stupid or anything else of like, hey, you really want to do that now. Think about the consequences of this. And then, so whenever, do you know how I second guess myself a lot?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
That's because that little voice pops up in my head that goes, hey, did you think about this? Did you really think about this? You should stop. And then that's what causes me to go, and then just stop all of a sudden. And you go, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? I'm sorry, I just second guessed myself. That's what it is.
Huh. Interesting. So then the last dimension for inner voices is intentionality. So intentionality is whether you're using your inner voice on purpose. So some people do this when they want to practice presentations, or they're doing like a self-guided meditation. Like, you know, when you're sitting there and you're trying to meditate and it's not working. But this is really any instance of a person turning their inner monologue on. I didn't know we could turn it off. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know some people could just go cold turkey, no voices in their head. Because I'm jealous. Sometimes I'm like, shut up.
I'm not even sure as to how something like that would necessarily be done, because at almost any given time, no, that's not true. I know how it is that I would do it, but it's not something that is necessarily conscious. It is forcefully distracting myself. It is those moments where I am so tired or done with anything that while doing something else, I shut my brain off. So you've seen those moments to where I am zoned in. I am dead to the world, either from watching a show, I am playing a game, or I'm reading a book. And it's like nothing you can do can get my attention during that time, because I'm fully absorbed. There is no other thought there. It's gone.
That sounds peaceful. It sounds very peaceful. I feel like you could put me under anesthesia, and even if I don't remember it, I'm probably like talking to myself. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So earlier I said the amount of people that have inner dialogues varies greatly due to consistency and the way various studies have been carried out. Researchers have used multiple methods to study inner monologues. Self-report surveys, which is a method where the researchers question participants to get their experiences. So essentially it's an interview, and then you tell them about whether you have an inside voice or not, which I don't know how reliable that would be.
It seems like for people that don't want to seem weird, I don't know. I feel like people would lie about it because
depending on how they feel, it makes them be perceived either way.
Yes. Perception. That would be a big factor in my opinion.
Because some people believe that if you have an inner voice, you're smarter. Other people believe that if you have an inner voice, you're mentally ill.
See, that was the common association that I hear. Less about the mentally ill, more so that I'd learned that as a kid, everyone has an inner voice.
I thought so too.
That was my understanding. So when you gave me the statistic,
did you think your inner voice was your conscience? Because as a kid, I thought my inner voice was my conscience.
So remember what I told you, that I imagined my inner voice as a smarter version of myself? That was my association, that it was like my conscious or something else that was watching me, a guardian that was basically telling me, hey, think this through. Stop this.
So I'm guessing, is that why you're at goody two shoes?
Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe it could be the whole thing for how I was raised and what I would do. But it's like anything that I would do, unless I had hyper focused and shut myself away and was just pure fixated, there was always a voice that was running through my head as I was doing something.
Makes sense. So the other method is experience sampling. So Russell Hurlburt, he used this method when studying inner voices. And in experience sampling, the participants report on their inner voice experiences throughout the day, which again, not super reliable. I don't know if that's super reliable.
Would you not in that scenario have to be hyper focused on trying to detect or realize that there is an inner voice that is going on at that moment?
I feel like you would be so aware of it that it might skew the results.
Exactly. Because, like, I need to think about what I am doing here for this thing as I am brushing my teeth. Yes, my inner voice is specifically making sure that I go and do a clockwise formation, like while trying to brush my teeth. I don't know, something like that. It seems if you are actively trying to think of it, that's going to change the voice.
Yeah, it's going to change like the frequency, I feel like, But due to all of the various methods, and also because researchers have to rely on individuals to self-assess, it makes this a hard phenomenon to study. I personally don't remember every instance of my inner voice. And when someone points it out, I feel like I think about it more, causing it to happen more frequently. You know what I'm saying? So who knows if the self-reporting actually works or if it is skewed because participants know that they're part of this study, you know?
Yeah.
Basically, unless we invented a way to hear people's inner thoughts, this research would continue to present these challenges, you know?
Yeah. And then I don't really know how it is that would happen in the first place. It seems like something that would almost always be skewed.
I think it will.
Because even then, think about this. Hold on. Think about this.
Because I'm very aware of my inner voice, but still, if I had to write down every instance, I wouldn't even, because it's there all the time.
And let's say that someone does invent a machine, something that does detect your inner thoughts, and you put it on. By virtue of you wearing that and you knowing that it is on your head, you yourself would arguably want to control more of what you are thinking because you know that it is being detected. Which means that's going to affect the results of the study in the first place, even if they did that.
Maybe you just tell them that they're actually getting a brain scan and not a thought scan.
Yeah, no, you would have to lie. You would have to lie. Otherwise, there's no way that study would work.
Placebo control group too.
Yeah, of course.
So what do people who don't have an inner voice do other than probably being so chill because they don't have that condescending tone telling them that they suck all day? Well, Psychology Today says that the best view of people who don't have an inner voice is that they simply process information differently. So instead of rehearsing with an inner dialogue, they simply use visual imagery to understand things and prepare for tasks. People who think like this, they function well with to-do lists and visual depictions of the information that is presented to them. Contrary to popular belief, they do still think. Because when I was looking this up on Reddit and other places, they were like, oh, they probably have no thoughts.
So
how would that even work?
So instead of an overworked assistant in your head that's just trying to talk to you about something, it's basically a comic book strip.
I feel like you're the assistant. Like you have to do all the heavy lifting. Like there's nobody there to remind you to do things. It's just you. You know, I don't know. So since during my research, I did find like a lot of people just assume that if they didn't have an inner voice, their thoughts were empty. So while an inner monologue can mean that someone has very developed verbal skills, so they may have like a wordier inner voice, that's not an indicator of them having higher intelligence. It just might mean they're more confident or chatty, you know?
It's more on their personality versus anything else.
Yeah. So what are the positives of having an internal monologue? Internal monologues can help with planning, problem solving, self-regulation, self-reflection, emotional regulation, and putting things into perspective. It can also help with like self-motivation, you know. So there are many ways in which being able to think internally or sort through things vocally in your head can be really helpful.
I get that. What does it do for you?
Me?
Yeah.
All of that. Because even when I'm like acting crazy in my head, I'm like, girl, you crazy.
Until
you
it's reached that
stop.
point where you've completely dissociated.
No,
and then it's like.
Still, at all points, that's why I feel like everything I do is so calculated because I'm very aware of what I'm doing. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. Absolutely not. But like my brain is very much aware of what I'm doing. And it's like, oop, we should definitely not do that. But I also feel like it does mitigate me doing things that are really extreme. Because it's like, girl, if you do that, that's like unforgivable. So don't do that. I don't know. It's constant. It is very chatty.
That there is a degree of safety that is there, even if it's a light guardrail. You don't know where exactly it is, but it's somewhere in there.
Oh, just because I can hear my inner voice, because my inner voice is condescending, but I'm also condescending. So both of us are just battling. Like inside of me are two demons, and they're both bitches.
I feel like inside of me is a lawyer and is just continuously arguing because again, that's one of the things the majority of the times that I would converse or anything with my inner voice, it's an argument as I'm trying to logic something.
Yeah, no, my inner voice would be like, don't do that. And I'd be like, don't tell me what to do. So I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know
and
what
if
to
there's
tell you.
anything I know after years of being with you, it's that telling you something that you should or should not do is an immediate gateway into you doing the exact opposite.
It's like, I should calm down. Who am I to tell myself to calm down? I've had that conversation in my head.
I believe it.
Like I need therapy. Like, I don't know. I'm ready to fight with anyone, that I will fight with myself.
Today on The Mystery of Everything, we dive into the status of Gabby's head. What will the outcome be? We don't know.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. Also, a very important thing to note here is that while there are positives to having an internal monologue, there are also negatives. So people with internal monologues can utilize this as an advantage if it is positive inner monologue. They can use their inner voice for planning and organization, memorization, all of those things I listed earlier. However, developing your inner voice to be positive is something that starts from when you're a child, or else as an adult, it is very difficult. And this is speaking from experience, but it is very difficult to essentially rewire your brain for positive self-talk, like when you're fully grown. If you're used to always thinking negatively.
You just called your own voice incredibly condescending, which means that it's one of those things that if you have that as a constant state, this is what actually leads to the phrase being stuck in your own head.
Yeah, no, I cannot get out of my head. I would be so powerful if I could just stop overthinking every action. Genuinely, when people look at me, if I'm walking, I start thinking in my head, like, girl, make sure you're not walking weird. And that causes me to walk weird because now I'm like, wait, now my foot feels weird and heavy. And then I overthink it. When I did theater, like when I was in theater in high school, acting was so hard because you have to like become the other person. But in my head, I'm like, this looks so fucking dumb. Like, oh my God. Like in my inner voice was like, stupid, you're so dumb. I could never get out of my head enough to be a character. That's why I went stage manager, because I'm like, this is never going to work for me. Like, I don't know. It is incredibly difficult doing anything with that condescending butthole in your ear. Literally, constantly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Like, I would be powerful. I feel like that is why I got nerfed a little bit.
Everybody shush! William Shatner has something to say.
Cat and Jethro, box of oddities.
What do you do when the woman you love dies? Well, of course you dig her up and you live with her.
Aww.
The show examines weird things.
There are plenty of old photographs from this time period of children out in the streets playing in and among the dead horse carcasses.
Oh, I miss those days. Things used to be so much simpler.
Cat and Jethro.
Then there's the urine wheel, which sounds like a really bad game show.
Thing done weird things. Cat and Jethro, box of oddities. That is really mysterious.
Join Cat and Jethro Gilligan Toth for the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected, as they lift the lid and cautiously peer inside the Box of Oddities.
The Webby Award-winning Box of Oddities podcast from Airwave Media.
Serial killers, strange disappearances, unexplained mysteries, terrible disasters. I'm Nate Hale, and in my show, The Conspirators, I'm here to tell you all the stories from history your teacher never told you about. Hear the real story behind the Bermuda Triangle, or about the history of people drinking blood to stay young, or about the serial killer operating in Nazi-occupied Paris, or what dark secret lurked within the walls of a Scottish castle. In my show, The Conspirators, I take you on a journey through some of the darkest corners of history, where you'll hear about the folklore, myths, and misconceptions behind some of the darkest events that ever happened. Listen to The Conspirators on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction.
Like, I think it was on purpose, and I respect it.
That was that was your moment. That was the debuff that would be applied. Like, yes, this individual would be too powerful. Quick, give her incredible, crippling self-doubt and anxiety.
Exactly.
Make that inner voice really lay into her.
Exactly. So children that are praised and taught to think positively about themselves, they tend to grow up with a more confident and positive self-talk. And there's like tons of articles online that are like how to talk to your child to make sure they're not like having negative thoughts, I guess. Mm-hmm. But during the teen years with heightened emotion, negative self-talk can tend to take root. And I feel like that's what happened to me. I turned like 12, puberty hit, and it was just downhill from there. Like, yeah, spiraling out of control. Like, I don't even think my parents knew how to talk to me as a teenager because I didn't know how to talk to me. My brother and I were best friends, and like just the sight of that man wanted me to And it was my little brother, but like I would fight him.
That makes me realize.
No reason, unprovoked.
So we're talking about the origin of these things. No, I realize I now remember when my inner voice became more prominent. And that is specifically when I first moved to Lexington, when I was like 8 to 9 years old. Because that was the point in which I was constantly then being bullied all the time. It was like my first years living in the city were terrible. And I remember being alone so much that I actually would just talk to myself about the issues. Like, why is this happening? What is going on here? Why are they talking to me this way? Why are they treating me this way? And then I would just go in circles with myself talking. And I think that's where a lot of that actually developed.
Interesting. Huh. I mean, I guess it's at pivotal points in your life.
Arguably. I don't know. Sorry. I know there's a little weird little side
It's
note
a
there, but I'm just
Journey
realizing
of
something.
self-discovery for everyone involved. Maybe everyone listening is also reflecting. And if you don't have an inner voice, please just comment. I need to know what it's like inside of your head, please. I'm so curious. I don't know anybody that doesn't have an inner voice. Everybody I'm related to is very loud in their heads. Like they're so loud in their heads, they start talking to themselves. It's a bit unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
In my house growing up, like my brother would be yapping. My dad would be yapping. My mom would be yapping. Like nobody shut up. And they wouldn't even be talking to each other. It was interesting. So if negative self-talk is an already established habit, it can become a really big problem. And that's when your internal monologue stops helping and starts hurting you, especially since a professor of communication at the University of Southern Maine, his name was Lenny Shedletsky, he asked some of his students to turn off their inner monologue just for a few minutes, and most of them could not. So this means that if the internal voice was to turn negative or obsessive, it could lead to detrimental mental health effects. Speaking from experience, mind you, from experience. Because when I start spiraling, the only thing that maintains a shred of, I wouldn't even call it sanity, but I play solitaire on my phone. One game after another, which is so funny because I learned that from Brenna, because before that I would just sit here and spiral, but she was spiraling at work one day and she was just playing solitaire. And I was like, girl, why are you doing that? So I decided to try it and it works. It works. Like it keeps you from completely crashing out.
Gabby, what did I just say about what happens when my monologue goes quiet? Like when that inner voice it's when I am immediately either zoned in on a show or playing a game or something. That means you did do with solitaire specifically what I was talking about with what happens when I read or watch something, play something.
The thing is, I cannot read without my inner voice. If I'm reading without my inner voice, I'm just looking at a page and nothing is getting in my head.
Yes. Well, technically speaking, there is an inner voice when it is that I'm reading, except the inner voice is like it's telling me the story versus I'm just reading it, if that makes sense.
Huh, that does make sense. So, for instance, some people may be incredibly introspective though, and they might be good at in-depth self-reflection, but their self-hatred or anxious thoughts might overpower and get stuck on loop, leading to increased general anxiety or social anxiety. So there are multiple steps that people who need help managing their internal dialogue can take. And there's like a million articles online that will tell you how to do this. But some of these are, you do mindfulness meditation, and it helps you to become aware of negative thought patterns. And then once negative thoughts are identified, you need to challenge those thoughts and evaluate if there's any truth in them or if they're just, negative for no reason. And then you can point out the inaccuracies to these thoughts, but you're pointing these out to yourself. And then positive self-talk needs to be utilized to counter negative thoughts and dialogue. And that's just some of it. There's like lists of a bunch of ways. And also, therapy.
Always therapy. In the end, when we talk about anything for mental things, always therapy in the end.
And I wish I could say it's free $99, but it's very much expensive $99.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. If at one point it was, I would find that hilarious because it would be a perfect segue. But it's not. It's not.
Oh
guys.
my God, BetterHelp sponsoring Mystery of Everything. Like literally listening to one episode and it's just me and Brenna spiraling, and they're like, anyway, so this would be a gold.
I have walked in on you. Like, I literally have gone to work out. I have come back into the kitchen, gone to put in some water. I announce my presence, right? Sort of off the side, but I try not to disturb you. And then I just hear you just scream because you didn't see me. And I'm just standing there to get some water.
Because I was thinking, I don't know. That's why I'm so easily jumpy, because I'm not aware of anything.
I know, but I think the reason you screamed in the one instance is because you were already talking about something that was somewhat salacious, if I recall correctly.
Maybe. Who's to say? So, interestingly enough, in acting, actors are sometimes told to step out of their own mind and into their characters. And to do this, they need to sometimes silence their own inner voice. I actually found an article by Backstage magazine giving tips to actors on how to clear their minds and potentially mute their inner voices. And that makes a lot of sense, because I was saying earlier, I always thought I was like...
Wait, is that like method acting? When they talk, because I thought that method acting would almost be like, okay, you have your inner voice, but you're changing your inner voice to be that character.
Method acting is when you become the character, but this is just for acting in general, where you don't want to have because you'll be thinking, oh, this is kind of dumb, or you might think something's funny instead of fully engaging in the emotion.
Yeah.
You'd be mimicking it in a weird way. I don't know. But if you're trying to pretend to be someone else on stage or on camera in front of tons of other people, if you're getting in your own head about it, you probably wouldn't be able to sell it really well, you know?
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, inner voices are strange. So many people have them. So many people don't have them. We actually have no idea how many people have them and how many people don't.
No,
and
that statistic from the beginning of 30 to 75%. I'm just like, I still don't know. Do people? I don't know.
And it plays a huge part in personalities and how you process the world.
Gabby, post a thing to your Instagram and here, do a poll that just asks people if they have an inner voice. And then we'll just on your next episode, reveal the statistic of it for followers for who has an inner voice.
Okay, guys. So after this episode here, what I need you to do right now is comment if you have an inner voice, what it sounds like. Is it preppy? Does it just sound like what you think you sound like? Is it mean? Is it condescending? Does it
have a foreign accent?
Does it have oh, that'd be funny. Somebody just has a Frenchman in there. That would piss me off. No offense. I love the French. Some of my family speak French, but it will piss me off to no end. I don't know why. They just sound condescending.
Yeah, no, not only that, Gabby, but your family in French at different gatherings would you have people who would shit talk people in other languages because they think that they don't understand them. That's
anybody who can speak another language, though.
That's the point. And that's the experience with French for you.
So I don't know. Tell me, fun accents, how much you use your inner voice. Is it like me where it completely takes over your life? Or is it like someone who barely has one, who just thinks of certain words occasionally and they're like, wow, I have a voice that read that back to me? I don't know. I want to know. Also, if you have an inner voice, do you tend to have more anxiety? Or if you don't have an inner voice, do you also have anxiety? Do you just visualize your spiral instead of hearing it? I don't know. I have lots of questions. Just clarify. I'm curious. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. Yeah, that's the episode.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Don't think about this one too hard.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Takuya here.
And I'm Gabby.
And we are the hosts of History of Everything, a podcast which you can probably guess by the name is, it's about everything. Do you want to know why people thought potatoes were evil and would give you syphilis? Are you curious about all the stories of the terrible and stupid ways that people have kicked the bucket over the years? Do you want to hear tales about all of the different badasses of history and the lives that they had brought to life? Well, if so, then look no further. History of Everything is just the right podcast for you. It's available on Spotify, Pandora, and anywhere else that you get your podcast from. Join us for some fun and just see how weird and wacky history can be.